So how do you decide how to go get an interview? Like, do you plan things out? Like, I know sometimes you go to meetings like county board meetings or city council meetings or whatever. Those are relatively planned, but I wonder, like the encounters you've had at the Wisconsin State Capitol, where you've more or less walked in, spotted some lobbyists that maybe were supposed to be there and confronted them. Was that something that you planned? Like, I'm going to go stir some crap up today, or was it like you were
a
on a
lot of
mission
times
to something
at the
else?
state capitol, I just knew that if I show up with a camera, I would run into people, right? And nowadays, political events are so orchestrated. I mean, literally to the point where you take, for instance, that phony with the big mustache who ran against Paul Ryan, and Paul Ryan ended up, retiring, and then it became Randy
Bryce, is
Bryce,
that his name?
total fraud,
Yeah.
who literally won his primary because he had a mustache. They had actually a stronger candidate with Kathy Myers, the woman from, I believe, Janesville.
Yeah.
And they went with the guy because he had a mustache, and they had this multi-million-dollar, very big campaign for him for the first congressional district, right? And this is just an example. Like, I saw the footage of it. It's like he came to Racine. I mean, he lives in Racine, but he came to Racine to have this event, and literally it was like they had a gate inside the facility between him and the individuals, and like consultants and lobbyists have taken over the political structure so much to the point where, like, there's a political rally and it's like you don't see the politician walking around shaking hands anymore. It's they're behind the stage, they come up on the stage, they do their little little marionette shakes around, and then they get off the stage and they're gone. And it used to be 20 years ago, you could go to maybe a Dennis Kucinich or some other political event. I mean, I got to shake hands with John Kerry back in 2004, and granted, it was, a high profile event right before the 2004, election. But I mean, 20 years ago, you could theoretically get up close to a politician and film them and ask them a question. And nowadays, you've got these people, I call them buffers. They work for the politicians, and they stand in between the politician and any potential media. And if you are even approaching towards a candidate or politician with a camcorder, they will get in the way, and they will throw their body against you. I mean, just push you back physically to stop you from filming. Luckily, though, you could have a cell phone, and I would say to anybody interested in like documenting and filming, just pretend like you want a photo and ask some questions. But I haven't been to
Well, that's what they're afraid of, though, right? That they're afraid of gotcha moments, so they'd rather be insulated, and their followers believe that they are, men of the people, women of the people, or whatever. But what they're really afraid of is saying something, stupid.
I mean, just look at these last two presidential debates we've had with Joe and then now Kamala. I mean, they didn't even have an audience, right? Before that, they had an audience, but it was full of like lobbyists and consultants and donors, right? And so
Trump
that was
out on that in 2016, right? Trump pointed out that fact, and it got him a lot of credit for that. So now they're not going to do that anymore because Trump will stand up there and point to the audience again, and they can't have him scoring points.
And Kamala's doing no interviews, and I mean, Biden's barely done any press conferences as a president, and we're just seeing less and less media coverage, and the old school traditional mainstream journalists are just going along with it, and it's absolutely absurd.
Yeah. Who are the journalists that you follow right now? The people that, the independent, I guess, I assume independent journalists that you have respect for, that you follow.
Is there any?
Like Glenn Greenwald? Does he appeal to you at
all?
Sure.
I mean, Glenn
he's
Greenwald,
kind of backing Trump right now, but he's been independent. Or Matt Taibbi, or I don't know.
It's hard to say.
I don't know if there's many. I mean, there are a handful of writers, but I mean, the amount of actual journalists that exist. I mean, I was thinking about it for the last 48 hours because there's a news story I was mentioning, news story going on in Wisconsin. And I was thinking, so there's a news story that might break over the next however many months in Madison area. And I was thinking, who has been covering this issue over the last couple of years? Because it's been very obvious in the last few years. I'll just say that there's some corruption going on, some as far as nonprofit agencies taking in money and not spending it the way they're supposed to be. And I was thinking about it, like, who are the journalists? And it's like, there's only one journalist I can think of in the entire state of Wisconsin that has, and it's the MacIver Institute. Bill Osmowski is probably one of the only real journalists in the entire state of Wisconsin at this point. I mean, there's other, there's conservative media that's like way too like stuck in their I'm voting for this person. And then the Journal Sentinel, the Cap Times, the Isthmus, WORT, all of them are just so far down the Democrat rabbit hole where it's just pathetic. I mean, I can't think of many actual journalists that still exist.